What's up, everybody? I'm Tucker, and this week is Game of Thrones. So, few Game of Thrones things talking about this week. So that's just going to be all this is. There will be spoilers later on, maybe potentially spoilers, but we'll get to that later. For now, you can still stick around. So, first off, like I said last week, I was going to go to the Game of Thrones in IMAX, and I did. And for those of you who haven't already heard, I thought it was really cool. Seeing all that stuff on the big screen was really cool. There's a lot more detail of things I just didn't notice before. Now that it's huge, I did notice it, especially because those last two episodes, particularly the ninth episode for season 4, The Watchers on the Wall. The only time I'd seen it before seeing an IMAX was on my laptop in a basement, so that was quite a different experience this time. It was really cool, definitely worth it. Hopefully, some of you had a chance to go see it, because you won't be disappointed. Well, you wouldn't have been. Too late now. Plus, I got a neato poster. Neat. Oh, truthfully, I think that was just a test to see if people would go to the theaters to see that show, because they're just starting season 5 that's premiering April, and they plan on doing 6 or 7, and then rumor is they'll end up the whole series by doing a movie. Now, that had first come to light a while back. I don't know if this is still the case, but if they do want to do a movie, I think this was just to see would people go to the theaters to see it? And I think it made a few $1 million. So I think it did all right for just a re-release, especially because they didn't do a ton of advertising for it. Because there's the group of people who watch Game of Thrones, and then the group of people who knew about this, which I feel was less, and then people who went. It's also not all of that group. So it just kind of drippled. Drippled? It's not a word. Second, Game of Thrones stuff. The actor who plays the Mountain on the show, whose name I won't even try to say because I would butcher it and then I'd feel bad, he broke a record that was set by someone who may or may not have been real. So supposedly there was a guy who, roughly 1,000 years ago, something like that, carried a log weighing over 1,400 pounds on his shoulders for about 3 steps. The guy who plays the Mountain, who I'm just going to call the Mountain, he tried and carried that log for 5 steps. He carried a 1,400-pound log on his shoulders and just walked a bit. That is ridiculous. So, the Mountain is now the strongest Viking in the world. So, do not pick a fight with that guy. But Oberyn already found that out. The big Game of Thrones news that made this a Game of Thrones centric video is that there was a letter that was posted online today, pictures of said letter, of what is supposedly R. R. Martin's original plan for the series. This is where we're getting potential spoilers, because some of the stuff talks about what happens way down the line that could still happen. Some of it isn't going to happen, so might be spoilers, might not. If you really care that much, turn this off now and come back later. So first off, he was originally planning on making this series a trilogy, which is obviously not what happened. There's 5 out right now, working on the 6th. Not a trilogy. So he goes on to lay out what is the main problem, the threat, conflict in each individual book. The first book is all about the fight between the Starks and the Lannisters for the throne, the Game of Thrones, and that plays out kind of similar to how it did. Ned Stark still finds out about Jon Arryn. What he found out? He finds out the truth that he knew, and so he gets killed once again in King's Landing by the Lannisters. But in this original version, he was able to get Arya and Catelyn out of the city before that happened, so they're safe for the moment. Sansa does end up marrying Joffrey, and she has a kid with Joffrey. Then later, she's like, who do I team up with? Old family, new family. She ends up choosing her husband and her kid over her real family, so she's kind of not great. But she comes to regret it later, so it all works out. It doesn't explicitly say it, but I'm pretty sure she dies. So she goes from Stark to Lannister, but then Tyrion befriends Sansa and Arya and starts to like their family a lot more than his own. That gets a little weird later on. Then Bran wakes up out of his coma, and magic things happen with him too. He learns about it, and he's like, gonna get my legs back, and then doesn't, and then he sees the prophecy of his dad dying, and warns Robb, hey, don't go and fight, it's not gonna end well. And then Robb's like, whatever, avenge father. So he goes out, and he wins battles like he does in the books, but then he fights Joffrey. Sorry, fire drill. Robb goes, fights Joffrey, maims him, but still gets killed in battle. And Tyrion, who befriended Arya and Sansa, comes, lays siege to, and burns Winterfell. Then, during all this time, Jon Snow is just up in the north, being Jon Snow. He becomes the commander of the Night's Watch after some time, because, a lot will probably happen anyways. Then after Winterfell gets burned down, Catelyn, Bran, and Arya go to the Wall to try to get some sanctuary, but they're like, we can't, we got no family sort of thing going on up here. So then Bran gets really mad at Jon, and they don't become friends anymore. And then Arya forgives him, and then learns she has a thing for Jon Snow. So his younger half sister falls in love with him. Not great. Like, Arya is my favorite out of the whole bunch of characters, hands down. Arya's number one. Not a fan of this. Not glad that got cut. I would have been real sad. However, it does say this. So I'm going to read a quote here. What it says: "Their passion will continue to torment Jon and Arya throughout the trilogy, until the secret of Jon's true parentage is finally revealed in the last book." So, he's not really her half brother. Some kind of parentage. So that kind of fits in with current theories that he's not really Stark. Maybe he's Targaryen, something. Who knows? Not related to Arya, thankfully, for their weird ancestral love. It doesn't mention Cersei anywhere in here, so I guess this is where the incest has to come from. So anyways, they get turned away. Catelyn, Bran, and Arya just go even further north to try to get away from the Lannisters. They get captured by Mance Rayder. Then they get attacked by the White Walkers, the others, and things go real bad. But Bran with his magics and Arya with Needle, still says Needle, so she gets her cool sword. And then they still have their dire wolves, apparently. They fend them off and survive, but then Catelyn dies up north. So that's the basis of the Stark story, kind of what happens. Some of that, I believe, is spread over past just the first book, though. Then the second book was supposed to be all about the Dothraki invasion of Westeros, which that was really quick, first off, and that hasn't even happened in the show or the book. Now, in this telling of Dany's story, where others still God, where's my army? I gave you my sister. Why aren't you fighting for me, Khal Drogo? Khal Drogo kills him, but then Dany avenges him and kills Khal Drogo. And then that leads to everyone getting mad at her. So she escapes with some close friend. I don't think it says who specifically. And then they discover the dragon eggs, and she gets the dragons and armies. Then they invade. Then the third book is all about the fight with the White Walkers up north, fighting everyone, and giant battle. All the plot threads come tie together, and then in woohoo, things happen. He also put in some more stuff that happens with Tyrion in here. So here's his story. He eventually manages to get Joffrey off the throne because he's a dick, which then leads to Jaime becoming the new king because he just goes and murders everyone who's ahead of him in the line for the throne, then blames it on Tyrion, who then gets exiled for murdering all these people. He then teams up with the Starks to take down his brother and win back the throne, I guess. While he's there, he falls in love with Arya. He's even older than Jon. Now there's a love triangle with a young girl, her, as far as they know, half brother, and this older dude. Why? So Tyrion and Jon become rivals because love for children. Then there's also about a paragraph or so that's blacked out. You can't see what it says. But then the next line that you can read says, but that's the second book, ellipsis. So who knows what that means. Then this last bit here, this is the main potential spoiler bit, could still happen. He says there are 5 main characters who make it all the way to the end. Those 5 are Tyrion, of course, Daenerys, she succeeds maybe becoming queen, Bran, the cripple, Arya, the best character, and Jon Snow. All 5 of them make it to the end and live. So that's where I assume Sansa dies sometime after switching sides, leads to her death. Both the Stark parents are dead. It doesn't mention Rickon, but I'm assuming if he's in it, he ends up dead too. Jaime's dead. Joffrey probably dies. All sorts. But those are the main 5 characters who live, all of whom are still alive, so they could potentially still be the final 5 survivors of this slaughterhouse that is Game of Thrones. Interesting stuff. Not 100% certain if it's real, but seems to be fairly real. You can go look it up if you want to find it. Someone posted the 3 images on Tumblr or something. Luckily, the love triangle with Arya didn't happen. No, don't do that to Arya. Not right. But everything else, most of it can't happen now. The story's gone in such a different direction. The only real thing that could still happen is the 5 survivors. So we're going to have to wait forever to find out if those really are the final 5. Maybe more will survive. Maybe it'll be a different 5. Maybe less. Who knows? Only Martin and the showrunners. That's it for this week. Sorry it got dark because of that darn fire drill. I'm not going to turn on the light. It looks bad. If you like this video, be sure to like it by hitting the like button. Then also hit the subscribe button to come back for more next week. Nice.